Okay, welcome. I'd like to call this September 12th, 2022 council meeting to order. If you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hare.
Here.
Hazeltine. Lamb.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
Shields.
Here.
Simpson.
Here.
Coin.
Here. Reading of the minutes,
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields.
I move that the minutes from the regular meeting of August 22nd, 2022 as prepared and submitted by the clerk be approved.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Will the clerk please call the roll on the approval of the minutes?
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Reports of standing committees. The Finance Committee met prior to council this evening and will meet again in 2 weeks. There are several items on the agenda. Health, Safety, and Sanitation. Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meeting scheduled, nothing to report.
Thank you. Public Properties. Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meeting scheduled, no report this evening.
Special Legislation. Mr. Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing to report, no meeting scheduled.
Streets and Sidewalks. Ms. Hare.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report and no meeting scheduled. Thank you.
And Emerging Technologies. Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meeting scheduled and nothing to report.
Thank you. Request for council action. We have several for the Finance Committee. We have 22-194 CHIP grant rehab payment at 172 Normandy Drive in Brunswick. 22-195 budget amendments. 22-196 repayment overcharge to the hospital. 22-197 donate use Mitel phones to Medina County Sheriff's Office. 22-198 donate used PCs to Medina City Schools. 22-189 create new internal service fund for IT and related issues. 22-200 purchase a 2023 Ford F-150 for the parks. 22-201 modify ED marketing manager job description. 22-202 expenditure over $15,000 for C&J Noble Construction. 22-203 grant application for urban canopy restoration grant program. 22-204 RFPs for drug screening related professional services. 22-205 ODOT consent legislation for bridge inspection program. And finally, 22-206 expenditure for Catman Co. Inc. Rotunda Flooring ARPA. Reports of municipal officers. Mayor Hamwell.
I talked enough immediately before that. I'll pass. Thanks.
All right. Director of Finance, Mr. Durham.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are a couple items on the agenda that originated with Finance, and I will address those when we reach that.
Thank you. Law Director, Mr. Huber.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Chief Kenny, Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a couple personnel updates. We've had some promotions this past 2 weeks. Brian Wagner has been promoted to lieutenant. Officer Raven Ori has been promoted to sergeant. And Officer Jim Ty will be taking Sergeant Ori's position now at the Claggett Middle School as a school resource officer. So I'd like to congratulate all three on their new assignments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patton, City Engineer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick update on some of our active projects. Our concrete street repair program is underway. That is expected to last about another 8 weeks. Ray Mallard Park, the parking lot and dog park is continuing. That is closer. It should be completed in about 3 weeks. We've started work on our South Court elevated water tank repainting. That should last about 30 days. And finally, an update, our West Smith Road Phase 4 project. We'll be bidding next Wednesday, September 21st. As a reminder, that'll be our largest roadway project ever. It's estimated right around $5 million.
Thank you. Mr. Toth, LST Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Life support team had 3 members retire, and those positions have been filled. For the month of August, we did 358 ambulance calls to the city of Medina, which brings the year-to-date total to 2,356. For all 3 entities, we've done 3,616 runs year-to-date, and that's 156 increase from this time last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Marshall, Economic Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple items to note this evening. This Friday, September 16th, we have a couple ribbon cutting events. The first one is at 11 a.m. for the Stockman Learning Center business expansion project that relocated to 620 East Smith Road. And then the other one is at 4 o'clock for the Medina Center for Dance Art. And it's really not a ribbon cutting, it's more of a 20th anniversary celebration. So council should have received invitations to those two events. And again, these are in collaboration with Main Street Medina and the Medina Chamber of Commerce. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lestuka, Municipal Court.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Pacoli, Service Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening.
Mr. Gladys, Building Official.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Mr. Worley, Parks and Recreation Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just two updates for the Parks Department. As of September 6th, our outdoor pool and both of our splash pads are closed for the season. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and enjoying those. Secondly, I want to take the opportunity to thank the American Legion Post 202, Sherwin-Williams Protective Coatings and Marine Division, as well as Armor-Like Coatings for restoring our cannon at the Uptown Park. The cannon's been in place since 1947, and the American Legion took it upon themselves to get that refreshed for us, so we're appreciative of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Walters, Fire Department.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you. Mr. Dutton, Planning and Community Development Director.
Thank you. As I noted at the previous council meeting, the Historic Preservation Board, Planning Commission, and Board of Zoning Appeals will hold a work session regarding the proposed hotel on South Court Street on September 20th. That's a Tuesday, 6 p.m. Here. I just wanted to add that it is a work session between the boards and the applicant, but it will be open to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Notices and communications and petitions. We have none this evening. Unfinished business. There is none this meeting. Introduction of visitors. Members of the public will be permitted the opportunity to speak on any issue or concern which pertains to the city during the portion of the council agenda devoted to introduction of visitors. All comments shall be directed to the chair, and a reasonable time limit of approximately 5 minutes will be imposed. If there's a group, please appoint a spokesperson. Speakers should approach the rear microphone and state their name and address so it can be entered into the minutes. Members of the public will be afforded the opportunity to comment on other portions of the meeting as determined by the chair or by a vote of the majority of council members present. So at this time, anybody who wishes to make a comment regarding anything on the agenda this evening, you could do so. Just kind of line up in the back where the microphone is and state your name and address and give your comments. If there's a group of you, if you could appoint a spokesperson, that would be helpful. So we're not here till 10 o'clock at night, but we understand if you want to speak, you can speak. So if there's anybody that wishes to address council at this time, go in the back, sign your name and address where Ms. Patton is, and the microphone's in the back. So if anybody would like to address council at this time, here's your opportunity.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rita Gary Esposito, and I live at 1125 Willow Bend Drive in Medina, Ohio. I thank you for letting me address the council, and I would like to make a couple of comments on the deer ordinance, which is up for review. And if it's okay, I'll just run through my comments, and then you could respond to them now or even during any discussion of the ordinance. I have a couple of them. First of all, I'm interested in how the overpopulation was determined, if there was a study done or some other course of research to determine the overpopulation. I did not see in the ordinance a limit on the number of deer per hunter, per day, per season. Is there any type of limit that will be imposed? I did not see any enforcement provisions. I think there's a hold harmless on behalf of the city, but in terms of otherwise, whether there are penalties or other types of enforcement provisions, I didn't see any of those. I'm interested in how this particular ordinance came about, because there may be some less intrusive means of controlling deer population, such as I understand that you could have contraceptives that are used and that kind of thing. The map, I'm not really sure I know how to read the map that was enclosed, and whether the area of concern was inside the solid lines or outside of the solid lines. And let's see. I think I have just one more. One more is, oh yes, my last comment is I think there's a couple of grammar things that could be looked at to make it more clear what the meaning is. For example, the word trespass. They said, a trespass doesn't occur, for example, if you have permission, but the way that particular phrase is is worded. I think that it's sort of involving both sets of explanation that could be addressed. There's just a couple of, I'm happy to share grammatical changes, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. It might go quicker too if, once you sign that, if Kathy, you could take it, then when they go in line, they can sign before they come up. That'll be
Here's a pen.
probably easier too. Okay,
Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Loretta Krieger. I'm one of your non-lethal opinionated folks. I'd like to stand up to say I do not want you to kill the deer. Do not want the bow hunting in the residential areas in the city of Medina or the parks or other businesses in the area. Our city is way too populated to have anything safe. There's not enough stipulations in the ordinance to actually show that it's going to be safe at all. I know there's going to be there's a good possibility of some terrible things happening in the city, and I just don't want to see that happen. And I'd like to know why you can't just put it up on the ballot so people can decide whether we have bow hunting. That's my question. Why don't you put it on the ballot? There's a lot of people here that are against. There's a few that are pro. So why not just put it on the ballot?
Well, ma'am, thank you for your comment. I think that we've discussed this, and I think at the last ward meeting, I'm not sure if you were at, I don't remember. I think we've kind of answered the question. I mean, we're elected officials by the people of the city of Medina, and I think all of us took an oath, and I think we all worked very hard to get the information from everybody and take our own pulse of the community, so to speak. And I believe from our pulse of the community reflects the way we vote. I don't think we vote just the way we feel. I think we try to vote the way we believe our constituents feel. So
there's a lot of your there's a lot of your constituents here that have told you, and we don't count.
No, everybody counts, ma'am, and I think that we take that under consideration. But that's kind of the answer to the question. I know you may not agree with it, but that's kind of my answer. I don't know what other council members agree with me or not, but that's kind of what I found out by talking to the community and my residents around where I live.
Well, in the ordinance, there's a lot of no stipulations for even simple things like the deer stands. How, what size they have to be, what their requirements are. There's no stipulations of what areas, really, that they have to stay in. And I know they have to have a permit, but there's just too many things, too many loose ends that it's just not ready to go into law, in my opinion. So, I don't know. Having not enough restrictions is just... It's just not right. And I don't think you should be voting on it tonight. If you want to vote on something, vote on putting it on the ballot.
Thank you,
Hi, my name's Adina. I live on Broadway Street. I'm new to Medina, about 6 years now, and I love it here. I'm a California transplant. I love it here. I think it's amazing. I think the things that you guys do for our community are amazing. But I do feel that when the answer is we voted you in, so you're our voice, you're not my voice, and I deserve to have a voice. Everyone in this room deserves to have a voice. And so putting it on the ballot, I will not balk if the entire community wants this. Fine, then we've spoken. But that should be your job. You're listening to people that say, put it on the ballot. If my voice counts, then put it on the ballot. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jim Dobney. I live at 232 Pearl Street. I've lived there since 1985. My reason for coming tonight is to discuss the nuisance abatement ordinance. Now, I want you to understand to start with that I don't fall on either side of the issue. My concern is the chaos, the controversy, and the contentiousness that's been created by this issue. I also understand that there's been much on both sides talking about misinformation. I'm going to do my level best to not go into misinformation or to increase the misinformation. I may say along the way that it is my opinion, but I don't believe that I'll have any misinformation. My first question would be the map that was included recently, the non-hunting area of Medina was believed in your packet. It was online. Has that been included with, or will it be included with the ordinance, or is that outside of the ordinance?
I believe that will be outside of the ordinance. It's a map designed or drawn by the police chief to give an indication of his determination of where hunting will be permitted. I think he made a determination, and I think he can explain this a little better once we get to the ordinance, that there's an area that is very obvious that's not included, but there's other areas that will be considered but are not automatically included.
Thank you. With that, then, having read through the ordinance myself, there are no exclusion areas included in the ordinance as written. I don't think there's any question about that. So I don't need an answer, so I'm not asking for an answer. There's no exclusions in any area or on any size within the ordinance. My second comment on the ordinance is that the mayor or his designee is responsible for determining the safety of the area after the permits are given. My question, and not a question, again, I don't think there's any doubt about that. That's what it says. My comment would be that, in fact, I'm not sure that a responsibility of that significance should ever be given to one person. I personally believe that this is something that could easily be adopted, that it would be a small group, be it one council person, the mayor, the police chief, two council, and the police chief, whatever it is. I think it's necessary to be in the ordinance that it's a small group so that one person doesn't have that responsibility. Not that I don't think that Mayor Hanwell would be responsible and do it, but I would ask you to consider that when he's no longer the mayor, any mayor in the future, if the ordinance is passed in its form that it's in, would be able to be the person responsible for determining that in and of themselves, the way that the ordinance is written. And I think that that's a danger to be in that ordinance on both sides. It might be a person that comes in and says, every single lot in the city is safe, in his opinion. The way the ordinance is written, that would be it. Or, the flip side of that, the next mayor could come in and say, I don't believe there's a single square inch of the city inside the city limits that would be safe for hunting, and that would be it. As I said, I don't fall on either side. I'm just trying to point out what I perceive to be the amendment, or the ordinance, excuse me. For your consideration, that point. Before I go any further, I think my next two questions, it might be the law director that would be able or possibly answer them for me. So I would direct my question to the law director in that, is there any urgency for the ordinance to be passed right away?
This is public comment, not an inquisition,
Oh.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, generally,
Oh, I
yeah,
got-
it was just to give your comments so we can, give an observation. The other meetings that we've had,
okay,
it
I'm
was
sorry.
back and forth.
I'm sorry. I was asking because I thought that that would be a way to clarify it. Again, I didn't want him to have any misinformation. That's
Understood.
what I was going for. I guess because my belief is that there's not an urgency. I believe my second question for him was going to be, is there a legal responsibility for the amendment to be as vague as it is? And once again, I don't believe that there's a legal responsibility for that. But to get to my then position is, I think, the thing that, and remember, I don't fall on either side, but I believe if you took into consideration the things that I've pointed out and the contentiousness that is in the community right now, that you would make a motion and table the issue. I know that you would say, but we want to get something done. I believe by tabling the ordinance, you would get something done. And it would also follow with the statement that I've heard tonight that you were elected to make a choice. I guess, in my opinion, you're elected to make the choice that's in the best interest of the city of Medina. That, again, in consideration, and I'm not saying, remember, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be calling or there should be. I'm suggesting that the amendment, or excuse me, the ordinance needs some consideration. It won't take long because the base ordinance is there. All you need to do is form a committee and look at it, make some clarifications, some restrictions that people are frustrated about, put in the small committee for the safety of the city, and include non-lethal control also. I would go this far, and again, I don't think this is inappropriate. Councilman Lamb, I believe, is the person that's in charge or closest aligned with the anti-bow hunting. I would ask him right now, if a committee was to be formed, would he be willing to be on it as a representative of the non-hunting side, but yet look for some middle ground? Find a place where we could all not agree, because you'll never get agreement, but to get acceptance. The key is to get acceptance. Nobody, I don't think, disagrees that there isn't a deer problem. If we can solve the deer problem, both with controlled lethal means and also to include non-lethal, I believe that that's the way to go. So what I ask Mayor Lamb, would you be willing to be on that committee were it formed? Can he answer that? I don't know.
No, I mean, these are just comments.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Again, I would hope that that he would be, but, and I'm sorry if I've gone too far because he's pointing to his watch in front of me, but I believe, yeah, sorry, I thought I was making good points and progress, but
No, you're
I
all right.
believe-
We're letting you finish.
okay. Well, I wouldn't be as rude as the person in front of me just was, but that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not here to make any points on either side. I would hope, in conclusion, that any of y'all would consider putting the ordinance on hold and taking it to a committee and modifying it so that within the community, the amount of controversy and particularly contentiousness, you all know that. It's on the internet, it's everywhere, and it's nasty. It's the worst since I've been in this community, on both sides. I'm not pointing any one finger or another. So, if you would, I would certainly appreciate that if you would take into consideration what's in the best interest of the city of Medina and put the ordinance on hold to be modified. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name's Rick Stoper, and I'm at 1181 Pennyroyal Circle in Ward 3. The ordinance before council tonight allowing residential deer hunting in the city of Medina, I believe, is unsafe and unfair. As written, the ordinance fails to protect the rights of Medina property owners to be safe and secure when the city introduces deadly force into our neighborhoods. The ordinance itself is only 2.5 pages of generalities without specific enforceable safeguards relating to neighborhood hunting. The map and the regulations published on the Park Department website are not part of the ordinance. Accordingly, it's only the short and standardless ordinance that's before council today. As one of our prior speakers indicated, the ordinance gives the mayor or whoever he appoints unlimited power to make up the regulations as they go. Because the regulations are not part of the ordinance, the regulations could be one thing today, something entirely different tomorrow, and something entirely different next week or next month. There's nothing the citizens can rely on because those things can change at any time for any reason. They're not part of the ordinance, they're not part of the law. Since Medina is one of the most densely populated communities to enact a deer hunting ordinance, council should be extra careful before it permits hunters to take deadly force into the neighborhood. The ordinance, as written, does not include the protections that other communities have included in their ordinances to protect their residents. For example, many communities limit the size of the property on which hunting can take place. The most common minimum property size is 5 acres. The Medina ordinance includes no minimum whatsoever. So under the ordinance as drafted and as before council tonight, hunting could take place on even the tiniest lots. That's not safe, and council should change that. Many communities also require that if, for example, my neighbor applies to allow hunting on his property, I receive a notice of that application, so I can let the city know what I think, whether there's something specific about the neighborhood that makes it a good idea or a bad idea. The Medina ordinance provides no notice to neighbors whatsoever. I don't think that's fair, and I think council should change that and provide a notice requirement to neighboring property owners if there's going to be hunting taking place in their neighborhood. Many communities require that properties where hunting takes place have signs posted so that the public knows that hunting is taking place in their neighborhood. Again, the Medina ordinance is totally lacking in that regard. It includes nothing. It includes no posting. It includes no warning that hunting is taking place in your neighborhood. Again, that's not safe and that's not fair, and council should change that. Many communities don't give out a hunting permit without proof that the hunter has passed a crossbow or bow and arrow proficiency test. The Medina ordinance doesn't require crossbow or bow and arrow proficiency tests. And again, that's not safe, and council should change that. Many communities in their hunting ordinances don't allow hunting close to a school or a residence or a property line. They require, for example, a 500-foot buffer zone for schools and a 100-foot buffer zone for residences and property lines. To me, that's just common sense to not allow to put a buffer zone in there so that there's a certain area where the hunter has to be away from a school or away from my home or away from my property line. The Medina ordinance doesn't include any buffer zone. That's unsafe, and council should change that. Some communities don't give residential hunting permits to convicted felons. However, the Medina ordinance doesn't prevent convicted felons from getting a permit. That's definitely not safe, and council could change that, and they should change that. Many communities don't allow hunting on a Sunday or a holiday or days when the schools are closed. That's common sense. The Medina ordinance allows hunting every day during hunting season. In residential areas where children are out and about when school is off, that's unsafe, and council should change that. Many communities don't allow hunting in city parks and on city property. Nothing in the Medina ordinance excludes the city parks or property from hunting, and council should change that. Many communities won't give a permit to a hunter who has violated the city hunting laws in the past. Nothing in the Medina ordinance prevents repeat offenders from getting a permit to hunt in Medina's neighborhoods. That's unsafe, and council should change that. The provisions I've suggested protect everyone. Excuse me. The provisions I've suggested protect everyone, those in favor of hunting and those who oppose hunting. If you're in favor of deer hunting, the answer isn't to give the mayor a blank check. That's not right. Everyone's in a hurry to get this done tonight. They can't wait a day or a week or a month. The great American Ben Franklin said that haste makes waste. The Medina ordinance is unsafe and unfair, and while this issue has been debated in the city for years, the language of this particular ordinance is a rush to judgment. Council should take a few days and fix it. The deer were here before we were, and they'll be here after we're gone. There will be plenty of time to hunt the deer. The ordinance should be rewritten and brought back before council at its next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jack Petrella, and I've been a Medina resident for over 30 years. This is home to me. I'm originally from Cleveland, but I've been in Medina long enough so that this is the place, you know. I had a knee-jerk reaction of no when I first heard of this ordinance, and I have the same reasons now that I have then. I'm not going to go into a long diatribe because people more eloquent than me have just been up here and discussed this ordinance. All I'm going to say is if there is a chance, even a 1% chance, of a child or a person working in their garden or any citizen or even a family pet that might be killed or injured because somebody doesn't know what they're doing, because they're firing a lethal weapon within the city limits, even if it's 1%, it's too much. And I think that it's not only a possibility that this will happen, I think if this ordinance is passed, it's an inevitability that sooner or later it will happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Barney. I live at 1072 Salem Court in Mr. Shields' ward. And I would just like to say that I agree with the people before me. I do not feel safe with this situation. I think that this rush to pass it is not the way to handle this. And I'm asking you to either slow it down so people can meet with the members and discuss safety points, or I'm asking you to put it on the ballot. The only deadly force I want to see in Medina is going to come from that guy's department. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nathan Case, 513 East Washington. I think we should have an honest conversation about what deer hunting truly is. I believe that those that oppose deer hunting may find that they have more in common with hunters than they're willing to admit. I hunt for the same reason that you buy free-range chicken eggs. I hunt for the same reason that you buy organic foods. I hunt for the same reason that you're willing to go out of your way and pay more money for quality food. I hunt for the same reason that you frequent the farmer's market. I hunt with the same logic that compels you to grow a garden in your backyard. And we all know it's not easier, it's not cheaper, and it's not quicker than just going to the store. I hunt to source food in a unique way to prepare a meal to share with my family and friends. I hunt to sustain human life, and I'm offended with the claims that I would put any human life at risk. I'm offended that you demonize me and presume that I'm some kind of heartless killer. There hasn't been one deer that I've taken down that I haven't got down on my knees and prayed and thanked the Lord. It's never any easier to take a life, but that's how we as a people survive. There's no food in this world that doesn't die for us to consume. We're all blessed with that burden. There's no escaping the fact we all hunt and gather. Not one of us has evolved past this distinction. We're all the same. The only difference is some of us source our foods directly, while others rely on a disconnected supply chain. You're fooling yourself to presume that hunters are different than you. We're all the same. None of us would risk harm upon each other. We're all neighbors, church members, activists of our community, family, and friends. So I ask you with all sincerity, why should hunting be our division?
Thank you.
My name is Kimberly Burns. I live at 218 Frederick Street. My husband Douglas Burns is with me. I am against culling any deer. I think that in an area where a lot is only 54 feet wide and 150 feet long, there is no guarantee that somebody's going to hit their mark and that deer's not going to come into my yard. And God forbid, I'm not going to have a dead carcass laying in my yard, and I will not, I repeat, will not allow anybody with a weapon on my property. So there's kids. I have 16 houses on my lot, on my street. It goes from North Broadway to North Jefferson. We have 16 kids on that street with lots 54 feet wide. Really? I don't think it's safe, and I don't want it in my yard. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jason Salzner, 720 West Smith Road. It seems like I'm going to be the unpopular one today, but we're going to go over it. Just so everyone's aware, I am very highly involved in the Medina Fair. We do a lot of landscaping there, a lot of landscaping, thousands and thousands of dollars worth. And these deer are absolutely destroying them. We've tried repellents, we've tried many different suggestions, not only from the city, but county commissioners. It's not doing anything. Unfortunately, there does come to a point, which I do believe the city is at right now, that the only other option is to cull these animals. Not only am I involved in the fair, but I'm involved with the landscaping and actually own my own landscaping business myself. We do a lot of work here in the city. There is tens of thousands of dollars that folks are losing in plants and any kind of organic matter for on their properties whatsoever. Not being able to control these animals is only going to get worse. In the past, I actually was an Ohio State Trooper. Being that said, I have seen many deer crashes, which I know that is definitely happening here in the city, which is also causing a lot of damage and a lot of money. These are some things, aside from some of the other concerns, that I think you folks aren't really looking at to see what's actually costing this city the fairgrounds, and yourselves, you folks that actually live here. Aside from that, it seems like a lot of everybody's concerns is the ordinance, and what I read, I think it's a very broad ordinance, but I actually do like that. You folks do have to understand the city is out for everybody's safety as well. You may have a small lot. That does not mean that they're going to allow hunting there. I've worked with Chief Kinney. I know his guys. I know his officers. And I know for a fact they're not going to allow somebody to hunt on one of these small lots. They're going to take into consideration very much so, even if you do have the larger lot, it still may not be safe. That being said, I know there was a few people in here, I'm pretty sure it was brought up in a meeting in the past, but the deer herd has been monitored here, as far as I'm aware, since 2012. As of right now, the rural average of the deer population is 20 per square mile. In the city of Medina alone is 60 per square mile. With that happening, that also creates problems with disease. Not only is there inbreeding on the deer, but there also creates disease. That disease can and will be passed on to you folks, your pets, and things like that. Some of those diseases are chronic wasting disease, zoonotic disease, chlamydia, leprososis, campylobacter, salmonella, and giardia. Now, these are all diseases that your pets and humans can actually pick up. Once these animals start, or they may have already, as far as I know, contracting these diseases, it will be passed on to your pets. So to be able to control this population is only going to make things a lot easier. I have seen these programs work in the cities very much so. My wife is actually from North Royalton. Her family still resides there. There have been zero incidences in the city of North Royalton, and they've had this program open since 2016. I have seen a drastic change in the deer population, and it is a very safe program. Yes, they do have in their ordinance, I believe now it is down to 1.5 acres minimum. That still does not make it safe if the police department or the designated people decide that it is not. And from what I'm understanding here, it seems like with other folks being notified and neighbors being notified of it, I'm sure you could have an opinion on that as well when that time does come. Other than that, I am also a taxidermist. I do that in the wintertime, and I work with the state of Ohio doing disease testing, and that is where we have realized that this is a big issue, and I do truly understand what's going on and what needs to be done. I am in support of this, and I hope it goes through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sue Hudson. I live at 607 Falling Oaks Drive. A lot of the things that I wanted to say have already been said. I would like to express that I believe that this is a hastily developed plan. It is poorly put together. It seems that little or no research has been put behind it. At no point has the council presented any of the research that they've shown. I have seen statistics that suggest 1 out of every 2 shots is lethal with an arrow, compared to 1 out of 14, one miss per 14 shots with a gun. I'm not denying that there are a lot of deer here. I don't have a clue where you guys got your numbers about car deer accidents or how many deer there are. Unless you're not hitting them with paintballs and you're counting them one by one, I think deer have a pretty good range. So I'm not confident in your bookkeeping, frankly. I would like to echo the point that the gentleman made earlier about too much is being left to Mayor Hanwell. This is a democracy, and one person should not have a decision about the safety of shooting deer on my land. I live 6 houses from Roscoe Ewing, maybe 8. I have plenty of flowers in my front yard. I have plenty of bushes in my front yard. They don't lay there and eat my bushes. I'm happy to teach anybody about deer-resistant planting if you want to know about it. The last thing I just want to refer to is the gentleman's comment about how this issue has developed so much contentiousness in this town. You know, it didn't do it. What you've got here are people who are engaged in your community. I would certainly encourage you to work with people who are engaged with your community rather than sending out a dog whistle begging people to come in to oppose the people who are engaged in your community, because that was a bad optic. I want to say clearly, I'm against bow and arrow hunting. You want to go pay sharpshooters to kill the deer? That's probably a whole lot more humane. But let's talk about some contraceptive measures also, because immunocontraception is available. You're not going to see results quickly from culling deer. Next year, the deer that are extant will have more fawns, and it'll take a while for the deer population to come down. The same thing would happen if you used contraceptive options. I'm against it. I think it's a bad idea. I think it was hasty. I think you owe this community the time and the demonstration that you have done your due diligence, because honestly, I don't believe you have.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Debbie Kanarick. A little levity, I came to pay a utility bill, but that's not going to happen right now. This is critically important. So I just want to voice my opinion. I've been here only about 20 years. The tornado in 2019 that wreaked havoc on a lot of our properties was game changer. Everything lost for a lot of people, plus, as well as other instances. With that said, there's not been a herd of new deer coming aboard. It's two same pod families that we see. I don't feed them. I don't condone hunting them. I don't condone harnessing them in our backyards. With that said, I just think that this, as you said, asked a lot of people or polled people. I wasn't polled. I haven't been polled on many things in my 20 years here. With that said, I can only speak of my little block and acreage, and I wouldn't appreciate anyone coming on the lawn doing this. However, I'm sure that it's going to be well thought out, territories bound, people vetted, if that happens. But it just doesn't seem like that's going on right now, okay? It just seems like it's a little rushed. It's a big decision, and as a few people before me said, a lot of eyes are on Medina, Ohio, and why would we move this forward without doing due diligence? So I appreciate your time. I harness the government, the police, our councilmen. I'm proud to be here. This just doesn't make sense to me and a lot of people I know. I'm not going to be throwing shade on anybody. And I really think that this should be rethought in a more constructive way. And I appreciate all your time. Cool.
Thank you. Anybody else likes to address council? Yes? Yeah.
Erica Griffin, 626 Cedar Street. I'm sorry, I thought they were all in line, and I have to leave for work at 9:30, so I'm excited I get to speak. The reason most of the people that have been at these meetings that are for this aren't here tonight is because you've already listened to us. You already told us you were going to take care of the problem. So I'm just letting you know, the people that aren't here in red shirts, we've been talking to you for years about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's 3 deer per season? I believe that was said at one of the meetings.
It's up to ODNR, and I believe
There's a
that-
lot of things that were mentioned tonight that have been covered at the last meeting. So due diligence has been done for those of you that haven't been around for a while or haven't been coming to the meetings. People's minds were changed. I'm sorry that some of you don't have a problem, but I've been living with it for a long time. When I first moved here 20-some years ago, 3 or 4 a year, we were excited, not anymore. So I just want to thank you for doing the work that you've already done and for voting this ordinance in. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kim Maholko, and I live on Woodland Drive, and I am furious. We've lived here since 2004.
Is that microphone on? I'm having trouble hearing now.
Do I need to start over? My name is Kim Maholko. I live at 564 Woodland Drive, and I am sick to death of the deer problem that we have. And people that say there isn't one, we have a huge problem. Last week, the week before, I had to clean up piles of deer crap in our yard before I could mow it. We have to clean it up because the neighbor's dog eats it. And the gentleman that told you that disease happens and will happen, it is transmittable to people. I personally know people that have Lyme disease. We treated our yard this year to prevent tick and Lyme disease because we have pets too, and we let them outside for a little bit each day. If you think it's not a problem, talk to somebody that is dealing with Lyme disease. It's permanent. The deer carry ticks, fleas. The fleas are a huge problem if you don't deal with it. That's why we treated the yard. Talk to somebody that has Lyme disease. All it takes is one bite from an infected tick. My brother is a seasoned hunter. Bow hunts, he gun hunts. He has for over 40 years. I can tell you that the city will not allow somebody that doesn't know what they're doing come in, and they're not going to come and hunt on a tiny lot. Somebody has spread, just last week, there was a flyer placed, and there were out and out lies on that, so I would encourage you to do your own research. The city's not going to allow somebody to come and hunt on your property. Any hunter will tell you that the best hunting is done early in the morning. Your kids aren't going to be out playing in their yard. Nobody's going to be shot or killed. I think that that is not the problem. We need to deal with this deer problem. We fenced in our garden area. Last week, the deer jumped the fence. They ate everything. Anything that wasn't surrounded by netting, they ate. And I know some of you think, well, don't plant hostas, don't do this, don't do that. We love our backyard, and I am going to beautify it, and I am going to plant my hostas, and I am going to do the things with my property to beautify it because I love it. And I love the city too, and the people in it. And I respect your, I can appreciate deer. They're fine animals, but they don't belong where I live, and I don't want them in my living space. I don't want them in my backyard. I don't want them eating. I spent time and money planting those vegetables, tomatoes, cucumbers, zucchini. They ate it all. Peppers, they ate it all. They ate the green tomatoes that were still on the vine. They're all gone. They are a nuisance and a danger to all of us. And let me just go back to the point of safety. The city is not going to allow them to come in and shoot at just any time of the day. I'm sure that it's going to be a protected time. My brother says the best time to get a deer is either in the early morning or in the evening. And I'm sure that the city is a little smarter and a little more knowledgeable about things, or hope that they are, and will put the proper safety in place so that we don't have to worry about it. And let me just say that most of the time I don't bother cleaning up the deer stuff. But when a buck comes into your yard and leaves the mess they leave, it's as big almost as horse droppings. It wasn't pleasant. I was furious. And I'm mad that we haven't done something before now. And another neighbor had a deer carcass in her yard, and there were coyotes eating it. Nobody's addressed what's going to come if we don't do something about this excess population of deer that we have. We're going to have a coyote problem. Do you want to deal with that? Coyotes, okay. What's being done about that? We can't sit on our laurels and do nothing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Zarowski, 1225 Alexandria Lane. We're the last subdivision in the city of Medina on the southeast. We back up to Mountville. And I'm not going to regurgitate what everybody else has said, but what I keep hearing is, oh, the city won't let you do that. Oh, the city won't let them do this. Oh, the city won't let them do that. But where is that in the ordinance? Okay? If the city is not going to let people do that, put it in the ordinance. Okay? I have all the respect for Mayor Hanwell. I have all the respect for council. Okay? I was told that 70% of the people that some of the council people talked to were in favor of, and I'm in Ward 3, okay? So that 70% of the people were in favor of passing this ordinance, okay? The people that I talked to, I don't find the 70%, okay? I don't know what the right answer is. Does there need to be a calling program? Yeah, I think so, okay? But is a bow and arrow the right way to do it? I don't know, okay? How many people know that a bow and arrow, the arrow can travel almost a mile, okay? That's 5,280 feet, okay? But I keep hearing that, oh, the city's not gonna let them hunt on the, the postage stamp lots, okay? If that's the case, put it in the ordinance, okay? I agree that one person should not be in charge of, okay, well, you're allowed to do this, this, and this, and this, when the mayor can hide behind the city where you can't prosecute. So that's something else to think about as well, okay? They can hide behind the city statues and all that type of stuff, and you cannot prosecute them, okay? So in the event something does happen and somebody does get hurt, where do we seek restitution, okay? I'm a commercial underwriter. I have been for over 20 years in the insurance industry. I write property casualty insurance and all that. I analyze risk. I can tell you that this stinks, okay? If everybody's saying that, oh, the city's not gonna let them do that, put it in the ordinance. Where it's black and white, where everybody knows, put the stipulations in there, put the training course stuff in there. This ordinance should be more than the 2.5 pages that it is. I've read it repeatedly, and I even had to ask some of my neighbor friends, hey, am I reading this correctly? Yeah, because it's not in the ordinance. Okay, so slow down, do some additional research, look at some additional programs. The Metro Parks up in Cleveland had a successful calling program with sharpshooters. Okay? How many people, I don't hunt, how many people are going to shoot a deer with an arrow and it's going to drop like that? No, it's going to run. Okay, and I've heard some estimates from council people of 50 to 75 yards. They can run up for miles being shot. Okay, does that increase deer auto strikes? I don't know. But in my job, you know, I see a lot of deer auto strikes, a lot of property damage. So does something need to be done? Yeah, I think something needs to be done, but I don't know if it's with a bow and arrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Donna Langworthy. I live on South Prospect Street, and I walked here today. And thank you to the person who has the deer in her yard. I have deer in my yard. I've lived here for 37 years, and I have never had as many deer as I have this year. Coming here, I walked here. I think I might have had 8 deer on my walk. I've had 5 bucks last week in my backyard. They sleep in the backyard. They sleep everywhere. They poop everywhere. They eat this year, they've eaten everything in sight around my yard. They eat, if I put planters on my front porch, they eat them. They eat the flowers off of them. They eat everything. They're not afraid. I have to share the sidewalk with them. They come down the sidewalk. They don't get out of your way. They stomp their feet and they're mad at you. Sometimes I have a dog. I can't even take my dog out to play ball in my yard because if I chase the deer away, they come back. They follow you. They're not afraid of you. They're skinny. They look horrible. Some are very big. We have the bucks, you know, they're terrible. They're skinny. There's something wrong with them. Something has to be done. Something absolutely has to be. I've never had this many deer. The McDowell house, I stopped counting at 18 deer. I took a walk down the sidewalk on Prospect by the railroad tracks, and deer on one side of me, I turned around because cars were stopping, and there was babies, everybody coming right behind me. They're not afraid of you. They're just not afraid of you. They go down the street. We have to stop this morning. Before I came here, I had to wait. I was laughing because cars had to stop while 3 of the deer walked across the street. They're just everywhere. My husband had to stop on his way home in Huntington and wait for this huge buck Saturday night. They run down the road. During the fair, again, they ran down Prospect Street, ran across Smith Road. People were stopping their cars. And we live close to the fairgrounds. They eat everything. So I don't know. I don't care what you do. Take them all. And I can't believe that safety, you know, we live in a wonderful community. And the mayor and the council people, thank you. I know you think about us, but something has to be done.
Thank you.
I'm Joyce Kiefer. I have sold real estate in Medina for over 50 years. And the reason why people come to Medina over that period of time is because they wanted a small town with good schools and a fair government. And I don't think we're getting a fair government now. I think council has already made up their mind what they're going to do, and it doesn't matter. The opinion should be put on the ballot. That is the only fair way that this is going to be solved. I'm also concerned about what we are teaching our children. Is it okay for us to say it's okay to take care of something that bothers you, that eats your yard, that goes across the street? The deer were here before we were, and we are their enemies. They're not our enemies. And the children are being taught that it's okay. Just kill them. What do you think that does to their minds? What do you think that does? We're teaching them that there's no responsibility and there's no compassion, and that it's okay to do whatever you want to do if it bothers you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Lila Richardson. I live at 1078 Alexandria Lane. I just have a couple points because you've heard me speak at every single one of your meetings. My first point is what everyone here, or the majority of the people in this room, are asking for: put it on the ballot. Give it to the public. In regards to that, I wanted to say, you talked about being the pulse of the community. We elected you to make the decisions, be the pulse, to listen to people and do what the majority wants. I sent every single one of you an email on August 22nd with a petition attached that had signatures of people asking to step back, amend this ordinance, take a look at it, put it on the ballot. There were 1,185 signatures on that petition. Not one of you acknowledged receiving that email to me. Today, that petition has 1,407 signatures, but we took it down to not muddy the waters. I don't know, Reggie, at the ward meeting, you told me you get more emails to call the deer versus to not call the deer. I find it hard to believe you got 1,200 emails on this. I don't know what to say about it other than the public is begging you. We want to have a voice in this. I've attended all of these meetings. Hands down, the people that want you to take a pause, to step back, make the ordinance more safe, way far outweigh those that want culling. It's loud and clear looking at the rooms, listening to people. I'm begging you tonight to take a step back. Listen to the people, because I actually just don't understand what's happening, because the majority of the people are asking you not to do this. So I feel like there's got to be some quid pro quo going on. We don't understand why your mind's already made up, why you're not listening to us, why you're not taking a step back. To the point that some of the hunters have made, like, hey, we're going to be safe, respect us. I don't have disrespect for any of you individually. What I have fear with is the point that everyone's been made. If it's going to be safe, we just want it in the ordinance. Put some yardage in there. Put some requirements about notifying neighbors. Don't leave the opinion up to one man and his designated representative that can change. I know that point's already been made. The last thing that I kind of want to leave is separate from kind of the deer issue, and it's just my feeling about the city of Medina. I've been here 22 years. I have loved this city. I was always so proud to say I was from Medina and really appreciated the government, the citizens, the friendships that I've gotten over the years. The past months through this, I have been nothing but disrespected with how this has gone. I am disheartened by the way I've been treated, and I believe that that has started with council and trickled down to the public. Eyes have been rolled, I've been cut off, I've been talked down to, I've been told I'm just a sheeple following lamb and I don't have my own opinions. I have been just disheartened by the way everyone has been treated in this. And I think I can't hold you as council representatives responsible for the general public, because we've both been probably bad on both sides, right? I think everyone can acknowledge that. I don't hold you responsible for monitoring what citizens do in that regards. I mean, that's above and beyond your job. But they're looking to you for your actions, and you've shown disrespect, you've shown eye rolling, you've shown lewd gestures at people. And what has come from that has been people threatening my pets on the other side. So how can I put trust in hunters when you've come up to me after meetings and threatened to kill my animals? When you've threatened to kill members that oppose you, you've made social media threats, you've threatened them when they're out in the public. So how can we trust any hunter when these things are happening in our community? So I guess my takeaway with that is, I look to you guys as elected officials. Be better, set a precedence so that it's not trickling down and the communities turning on one another. And I guess lastly, I would just ask you, please listen to us. We're asking you to put this on the ballot. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Mike Huff, live at 530 West Mill Street. I've lived in Medina County my entire life. I am a hunter. I think we have too many deer in Medina. But I also think that this plan is poorly written. And as a hunter, I can say that because I know the 6 of you sitting up there, none of you are hunters. But yet you keep saying it's safe, It's a good plan, but none of you have ever done it. Well, actually, Bill has. Are any of you veterans by any chance? Well, one. Thank you for your service. I think if you want this to be successful, as a hunter, I can tell you I've spent countless hours in a tree stand watching doe after doe walk by while I wait for that big buck. If you're going to be successful, this program should be doe only. Because if your hunters are going to be out there hunting, you don't want them letting deer after deer walk by hoping for a buck. That's not going to reduce your numbers at all. It's going to be trophy hunting. And that is not going to get you the result you want. This program has a lot of flaws. It is poorly written. Everyone keeps comparing us to North Royalton or to Strongsville or to Solon, but per square mile, we have far more residents than any of those communities, by far. So to compare us to those communities is apples to oranges. Now, you draw the line around the small part of the downtown Medina area. That area is not much more populated than the rest of the community. I've heard people come in at all these meetings say, I've lived in Medina 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and I don't like the deer pooping in my yard. I don't like them eating my plants. All these people moved from the cities and the suburbs out to this country town over the last 30, 40 years, wanting to live in the country. And what do? They get here, they say, we need more restaurants, we need more shopping, we need more lanes, we need more tire places, more pizza places, more Chinese food places. So they moved from the suburbs to a country town so they could turn it into a suburb. And then they began complaining about what made it country at one point, because it's not anymore. Because we've overpopulated it and we've ruined it. Now, we can't reverse that, but if we are going to do this program, it needs to be done right. Because I've never seen an issue brought before council that has been so heated on both sides. Online, I've seen name calling, juvenile behavior, and even physical threats. And I've seen immature behavior from council. From someone that politically I agree with, but I will say, if I'm going to flip somebody off, I will have the balls to do it to his face and not to his back. Politically, I agree with a lot of your stuff. That was a cowardice move.
Please don't do personal attacks.
If it's going to be done here, it should go both ways. I think you need to stop, rewrite the ordinance, and put it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amy Brighton, and I reside at 1119 Gentry. I started having deer destruction around 2006. I've addressed this many years ago. I have tried to make my voice known, and it fell on deaf ears. And so I'm glad that action is being taken. I know that studies have been done. For those who do not have deer damage, that is wonderful. I have taken the measures of doing deer-resistant plants, using every product on the market, spending hundreds of dollars each summer just to try to keep my shrubs from not being destroyed, and it's impossible. And unfortunately, over the last 2 years, vegetation that they never touched has now become fair game. Putting bird netting, putting barriers in the wintertime, it doesn't work. They are hungry, they will find a way, and they will eat it and destroy it. And I just would like to have a backyard that I don't have to invest every summer hundreds of dollars to just try to keep my plants alive, and I hope that you do support this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Gold, 407 Providence Drive. there's been a lot of misinformation. First of all, an arrow will not travel a mile being shot from a stringed apparatus like a bow. It doesn't happen. The physics of it, it makes it an impossibility. They've done physical studies, and instead of looking at a website that gives you the information that you want to present as fact, check some of the other websites out as well that did physical studies and showed that a crossbow at most is going to do between 600 and 700 yards, far short of a mile. And secondly, Mr. President, I don't know about you, but I don't live in a democracy. I live in a represented republic. So as elected representatives, I expect you to do your job and vote.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Wait, other one. Let the lady go first.
Hi, my name is Mary Case. I live at 513 East Washington. I just have some facts. I support the ordinance. I hit a deer last year. It was $13,000 in damage to my car within the city limits. So for you who says that, it's not costing anybody anything, $13,000 is a lot of money. My 4-year-old son sometimes cannot go out in our backyard because we live right on, like I said, on East Washington Street, about 0.33 acres, and at times we have 16 deer in our backyard. We put up a fence. They have destroyed it. They take it down. I can't let my dogs out without checking for deer poop either because it makes them sick. But 16 deer in 0.33 acres, this 2-herd thing, that's ridiculous. I support your decisions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name's Bill Kuhar. I live at 875 Gayer Drive, Ward 3. I spoke at the last council meeting, and let me just recap. I've been an archer for over 50 years, a bow hunter for over 40. I'm presently a 3D archery chairman at a local sportsman club. We run about a dozen archery shoots a year. And I'm also a trustee at the club. So I kind of have a background where I can speak intelligently about bow hunting. But what I want to address is the comments that have been made to council regarding taking a step back. They've been stonewalled and stepped back for over 10 years to get to this point. How much more do you want to step back? At some point in time, this has been recognized that we have too many deer. I implore council, do not let a small special interest group sway your opinion and render the council's decision-making impotent. Please approve this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeff Michalacki. I live at 1021 South Court Street. I just kind of seen this in the mail or in the local newspaper. I figured I'd just step in here and see what this is all about. I have to admit, I haven't read all this and checked on it, but I've lived in Medina since 1990 down on the south end of the street. For all you people say that the deer was here before we were, you're absolutely right, because when I moved there, right behind me was no development, no school, none of that. You've all moved in and took over their area. One of my things I like to do at night is go for a walk and just kind of see where all the deer are at. There are a lot of them. They're all around my house. They're all around the neighborhoods. They have no fear. I've walked the dog. We've went right next to a deer. They don't move. The dog don't move. It's a problem. The guy that was the taxidermist here earlier, he's 100% right. If you leave too many deer to go ahead and live in an area and the habitat doesn't support them, you have to go ahead and start looking at what the science says. If we don't have enough habitat to support them, we do get into things like Lyme ticks disease. Chronic wasting disease is another thing that's coming up. Last year, I shot a deer and we voluntarily took the animal in to have it tested for chronic wasting disease. Those that have pets, have small children, some say it's not transmissible to humans. I don't know if I want to test that. Dogs, pets, maybe. But there's just too many deer. You have to go ahead and limit the number somehow so it's a sustainable number. What's coming up here in the next month or two, the rut is going to start picking up. You're going to see all kinds of activity, deer crossing the road, weird times of day, middle of the day, running through neighborhoods. Every now and then you'll read in the paper where a deer will see a reflection of itself in a picture window, come crashing into the house. Nobody wants that. Last year, I had in my backyard a doe. She had 2 fawns, and it was kind of neat to see her and see the fawns. And then after a week or so, I noticed I only see the 1 deer and the 1 fawn. Well, looking around, I found the other fawn. She's dead. It's all decaying in the hedgerows. It's just a circle of life. You know, I've taught my kids about the circle of life. Things live, things die, numbers grow here, predators come in, their numbers go up, numbers go down. It's a vicious circle and stuff. So you do have to go ahead and do something with these deer. My wife and me have this ongoing thing. She hates them. Like many women here have talked about having gardens and putting out flowers and stuff. And my joke with my wife is, you know, just let me know what you plant in the backyard because I want to put it by my tree stand because it brings them all in, you know. So, you know, nobody likes seeing deer more than me, any big game. But if you're true, and most sportsmen are true conservationists, they don't want to see destruction. I don't want to see sick deer. I don't want to see disease. Your kids, if chronic wasting disease and Lyme tick disease comes to Medina and it gets pretty prevalent, you want your kids to go out and play in your yard, right? You don't want to say, oh, I can't send my kids out to the yard because, you know, they might get Lyme tick disease, or, you know, have to spray them down with heavy chemicals so they don't get that. So everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I know this is a heated conversation, but you really have to start looking at the science of things, what the ODNR says. Yeah, we have small lots, but we have lots of deer. There's no fear for the deer. Even crossing the roads, they don't even fear a car. So, I mean, that's kind of my opinion. Thank you for listening. Thank you for doing a good job. I mean, it's not a popular job, but thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll do a few more, and then I have 2 I have to read into the record also that I was given. So a couple more, if anybody else would like to speak, maybe 2 more people so we can move the meeting along. So, ma'am?
Deb Schmidt, 320 West Washington. I've had the privilege of working with a group of very independent citizens engaged in the community. We come from all walks of life, but we came together on our own to oppose hunting within the city limits. I know we don't have the votes. It breaks my heart. I loved animals all my life. I'm a vegan, so I don't even eat them. To say, if you are going to pass this ordinance, to please make it safe and make it clear so that the community can come together. It breaks my heart to say that out loud and in public, but I am imploring you to do so. You have an opportunity to do what's right. Please do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, you had a chance to speak, but go ahead.
Well, when the gentleman talked about North Royalton, I went to their website, I looked up their deer permit, and there's 14 pages. And all we're asking is some restrictions to make it safer for the citizens in this city. If you compare it to North Royalton, they have about 4,000 more population, but in a larger area than the city of Medina. But they have 14 pages. They have restrictions for their deer stand, which you do not. They have restrictions on where they can go, which you do not. They have restrictions on the acres that's required for the I was just looking at it when he mentioned it. And really, you should maybe check into this, table this tonight, and check, you know, use North Royalton as a guideline, because they actually have safety restrictions. And that's the problem, that everybody that I know and all my neighbors is there's no safety restrictions. That's the problem with this ordinance. So if you would possibly consider doing that, check, it's right on, I looked at it, it's 14 pages, and there's real restrictions.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I have two comments to read into the record that I received via email. The first one says, "The one thing that no one has talked about during the great deer debate is ticks. They are carried by the deer and can be left in the grass where they eat and sleep. Living in the south side of Medina, I watch my kids walk from Handos through the grass of Trillian Creek or the field next to get home. It is very easy for them to pick up a tick. Lyme disease is not pretty and affects over 476,000 people a year in the United States. Your first symptom is a rash that comes from about after a week of being bit. Other more serious complications are fatal paralysis and cognitive defects. Initially, this disease is hard to diagnose. I strongly support the culling of the deer, not just because of the destruction they cause, but because they are carriers of this severe disease. Thanks, Jeannie Pritchard." The next one I have says, "To the mayor and all of council and other city workers involved in this decision to kill or not to kill the city deer, good evening. For most people, seeing the deer brings an emotional response of gentleness, innocence, grace, peace, majesty, and kindness, to name a few descriptive adjectives. To this council, -1, and our mayor, I am looking at hate, aggression, firmness, nastiness, unwillingness, and strength. We are not hunting pythons or lions, tigers, and bears. You are asking for a slaughter of a serene creature in our neighborhoods. And the deer should face this death because they eat flowers and fruit trees. As for vehicle accidents, a lady had her SUV on fire, then blown up after a deer hit. Yet, I am not bitter. These things happen in our environment. You have used the term call. Call it what it is. It's not kind. It's pain, death, lethal, killing, fatal, and dangerous. It doesn't belong in our city. Deer hunting for food belongs in the countryside and forest. We can agree to that, at least most of us will. Yet you refuse to consider alternatives of coexisting, all for the flowers. So now I ask each of you personally and independently to think about your vote will mean to the city as you face us and will go about your daily lives here. This past year will not go unforgotten. I know some of you better than others. I have seen the kindness and friendliness. How can you turn so? Think hard on what you are doing. I ask you of this. If you are a voter tonight and you cannot wholeheartedly vote for killing because for whatever, if you have any doubt, vote no. Do not abstain. Let the situation move on to a more humane discussion for future meetings. Face your opponents with pride in your choice. Be strong. Respectfully, Shirley Ann Walker. Okay, those are the two things to be read in. Well, at this time, I'd like to take a 2-minute break so some people can use the restroom, and then we'll reconvene the council meeting and go through the agenda. So we have 2 minutes. So what time is it? At 9 o'clock. I'll give you 3 minutes. Well, it's almost 2 minutes. Our council members approaching back up. Where's Bill? Bill? What happened to Bill Lamb? Bill Lamb? There he is. Okay, I thank for everybody's patience going through this long meeting. We'll start up, but now we'll go into the agenda part of the meeting. I'm going to the introduction and consideration of ordinances and resolutions. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings on the following ordinances and resolutions. Resolutions 155-22, ordinance 156-22, ordinance 157-22, ordinance 158-22, ordinance 159-22, ordinance 160-22, resolution 161-22, ordinance 162-22, resolution 163-22, ordinance 164-22, ordinance 165-22, ordinance 166-22, ordinance 167-22, ordinance 168-22, and ordinance 169-22.
Mr. President.
Mr. Shields.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings of tonight's ordinances and resolutions.
Second. Any discussion on the motion to suspend the rules? Will the clerk please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Lamb.
No.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Motion passes 5 yeas, 1 nay.
Resolution 155-22, a resolution authorizing the adoption of the 2022 Comprehensive Plan Update for the City of Medina, Ohio.
Move to approve.
Second. Discussion. Mr. Dutton.
Thank you. This is a proposal to update the most recent comprehensive plan, which was completed in 2007. It's been a culmination over a year and a half long process directed by our consultant for the project, OHM Advisors, with a significant amount of staff time and input. The plan was also guided by a steering committee of 26 members, which Mr. Rose and Mr. Lamb were on and provided valuable input. It included considerable public comment, both in person and online. At their July 14th meeting, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the plan. And at the previous Finance Committee meeting, Aaron Dominy, principal at OHM Advisors, went over the plan and the process of its formulation. I'll add there's a slight revision from your original version on page 20, which is just a minor correction concerning background housing values. So at this time, we have a request for council to approve a resolution adopting the 2020 comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rose or Mr. Lamb, you have anything to add since you were representatives on the committee?
I think I spoke on it when we had the presentation at the last meeting, but I will gladly just mention again that Councilman Rose and I were also on the committee that chose OHM to do the work for us, because they had done they'd done a lot of excellent work for the city previously, and we had really a plan to get this underway much earlier, but with a number of things came up, and then COVID came up, so we finally got to it, and the process was fascinating, involved people from across the community with a lot of input, and the end product, I think, is something that we can be confident will serve the best interest of the city for the next 10 years, which is about the lifespan of a comprehensive plan, and serve as a good guide to City Council as we look to how we really develop the future as we go year by year by year. So, Councilman Rose, I'm sure, if you have something to say, probably share my same opinion of the how it went.
Thank you. I think the most important thing was the number of people, and the variety of the people who were there, from high school students to business executives. We definitely got a perspective on how things were, how things people wanted it to be, the input that we received at the various input centers, at the farmers market, at Cool Beans, at other locations. I think it's a good plan that represents just about everybody in town. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify, too, we have a comprehensive plan for the entire city that deals with the zoning classifications throughout the city. And then we also have a strategic plan, which complements the comprehensive plan, and that it gives us guidance when we make decisions here on council. We kind of look towards that strategic plan that governs even like balanced growth, quality of life issues, historic natures of the city. So we have this plan in place, so the decisions that we make as council changes would be fluent throughout the time. So I think this is a very good thing that we kind of meld these two things together to have the comprehensive strategic plan to give us, the council, and the administration guidance on what direction and the vision that we want for the city. And then so far, I think it's been going pretty well as far as over the, the last 20, 25 years that we've been working on it. I think it's been, we've been working in the correct direction with regard to that. So I appreciate you guys' help on that. And Mr. Dutton, I appreciate all your time and taking into, completing this comprehensive plan. Is there any further discussion or comment on the ordinance, on the resolution? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the resolution?
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Resolution 15522 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 15622, an ordinance establishing the One Ohio Opioid Settlement Number 153 for the city of Medina.
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion, Mr. Durham?
Thank you, Mr. President. We're required to create this fund to account for the money we get from this.
Thank you. Any further discussion on creation of the account? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Ordinance 15622 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 15722, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for an auction sale and dispose of city equipment and vehicles no longer in use.
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion, Mr. Pacoli?
Thank you, Mr. President. Upon approval, this auction, our annual auction will be, is scheduled for October 22nd on Saturday of this year. It'll be at the City Garage, 781 West Smith Road. The auction starts at 10 and preview will be at 9. We have numerous police vehicles. We have all kinds of electronic equipment, tools, items from the park, the rec center, and court. So we always, we have a good turnout, so look forward to seeing people there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the ordinance? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Ordinance 15722 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 15822, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for competitive bids and award a contract to the successful bidder for the South Court Street Curb Replacement Program.
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion, Mr. Patton?
Thank you, Mr. President. As stated, this will replace curbs on South Court Street, starting just south of Lafayette Road and heading south. I did want to note, in order to complete this project, several trees will have to be removed, and several more than that may have to be removed. If council authorizes this work to continue, we will reach out to all the property owners and advise them ahead of time of the situation with their trees.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the ordinance?
Mr. President?
Mr. Lamb?
Thank you. I just want to point out that this curb restoration project is really part of kind of a two-part program. The city adopted a sidewalk program a few years back after many years of no sidewalk program. And the sidewalk program incrementally goes through the city kind of by pie slice to get all the sidewalks up to a standard that make them safe and easy to walk on. And at the same time, after that, the city adopted a plan to restore the curbs on the streets, the main streets that go into town. And it's interesting because those curbs on those streets, most of them were put in place in the 1920s and the 1930s. And if you go on the state routes in near into town, you'd see the curbs were there, but they had nearly disappeared. And so I think it speaks well of the city because we took these two programs, and what they really do is they recognize that older sections of the city did not have some of the same infrastructure that was important, sidewalks and curbs, because a curb actually, when you think about it, you know what it looks like, but a curb is actually there to curb cars from coming on your tree lawn. And so this project that the engineer just spoke about is a continuation of that program to try to fix and replace the curbs on the state routes going in and out of town where they need to be replaced or they never existed. And it really works in conjunction with the sidewalk program that usually alternates curbs or sidewalks every other year. So I think it's just interesting to understand that there's a lot of things the city has to look at, and you sometimes might not think about it because you have a curb, but there were many stretches of road in town that don't have curbs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment on the ordinance?
Mr. President?
Who said it?
I did.
Oh, Mr. Patton.
I forgot to mention about the trees. Any tree that does have to be removed will be replaced after the project.
Okay, thank you. You had me looking all around here. I said, okay. All right, any other questions or comments from anywhere? There, okay, good. Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Ordinance 158-22 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 15922, an ordinance authorizing a job creation grant payments to Carlisle Brake and Friction Products.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Marshall?
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to authorize a job creation grant payment to Carlisle Brake and Friction, known as Friction Products, for tax year 2021 in the amount of $51,750.06 for 2 job creation grants. They had 2 expansion projects. The first one was in 2017, which consisted of their 150,000 square foot addition. This was the project that we were in competition with Oklahoma and Indiana, and they closed their Oklahoma plant and moved the production to Medina. Along with this addition, it was upgrades of their employee welfare areas and additional machinery and equipment. The second project occurred in 2020 during the pandemic for the relocation of their Solon headquarters to Medina, which consisted of an office renovation project. Based on the grant commitments and the monitoring meeting that was held on July 13th of 2022, the company now has 403 employees. This exceeds their grant commitments and their payroll goals, and that information has been verified by RITA. The company is doing well. We are respectfully requesting council to authorize this job creation grant payment. And as a reminder to council and all of public, the funding for these grants come from non-income tax generated revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment on the ordinance? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Ordinance 159-22 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 16022, an ordinance authorizing a job creation grant payments to Sandridge Food Corporation.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mrs. Marshall?
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to authorize a job creation grant payment to Sandridge Food Corporation, again for tax year 2021, the amount of $36,875 for 2 job creation grants. The first project was in 2012. The second project was in 2017. Those were both expansion projects in their warehouse production and employee welfare areas, as well as investments in machinery and equipment. The company has worked very hard to fulfill their hiring and payroll commitments. They have implemented hiring bonuses, referral bonuses, and have increased payroll for bargaining unit employees. They are actually, again, talking for additional projects and expansion plans. They have exceeded their hiring and payroll goals. Information has been verified by RITA. We're respectfully requesting council to authorize the job creation grant payment. And again, as a reminder, funding comes from non-income tax generated revenues. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the ordinance?
Mr. President,
Ms. Hare?
I need to abstain from voting for this, as this is my employer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Oh, Hare, sorry.
Abstain?
Yes.
No, abstain.
Abstain, I'm sorry.
Ordinance 160-22 passes 5 yeas, 1 abstention.
Resolution 16122, a resolution authorizing the mayor to approve and receive grant assistance from the Ohio Criminal Justice Services Grant for reimbursement for coronavirus pandemic associated expenses for the Medina Municipal Court.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Ms. Lestuka?
Thank you, Mr. President. Due to the COVID pandemic, the municipal court has a backlog on warrants, and these funds will help offset any payroll costs to get those caught up.
Thank you, Cindy. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the resolution?
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Resolution 16122 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 16222, an ordinance amending section 50511 of the chapter 505 of the codified ordinances of the city of Medina, authorizing a nuisance abatement initiative for both short-term and long-term control and reduction of white-tailed deer population in coordination with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and contiguous adjoining political subdivisions that opt to adopt a similar plan for nuisance abatement.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Worley?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to start by reviewing the municipal deer control permit information sheet that we have as part of the packet. The following items are needed to process a deer hunting permit application as part of this program. A property owner permission form and agreement form must be submitted for each property that's going to be permitted. A signed agreement is required for each property. The owner of the signer of the agreement must be the homeowner as recorded by the Medina County Auditor. You also have to turn in a stand application fee. All hunters need a permit. The fee is for a hunter to use an approved stand only. Thirdly, a copy of a Ohio hunting license and a deer permit. If the only property included in the application is owned by the applicant, their spouse, or parents, then a proof of successfully passing a hunter education course or pre-approved equivalent type of safety training is required. The applicant will also be required to submit a driver's license or a state ID card. In addition to that, a copy of their hunter's declaration page of homeowner or renter insurance policy indicating personal liability coverage of at least $100,000. In addition, with all of those requirements, the hunter will be required to turn in a map of the property with the boundaries clearly outlined, a location of the stand along with coordinates. I want to reiterate on that one that this is location and site specific to the exact location of the stand on the property, therefore meaning that the hunter cannot move their stand without reapplying for a permit and going through the whole entire process again. Our rules and regulations. The following rules are in addition to the ODNR rules and regulations. The city of Medina is allowed to have stricter rules than the state, but not looser rules. All hunters must adhere to the state rules and laws specifically outlined in chapters 1531 and 1533 of the Ohio Revised Code. In addition to those, hunters participating in our program must be 21 years or older. They have to provide proof of 5 years of experience or provide proof of 5 deer harvests. This information can be pulled off their personal account through the ODNR when they go to purchase a hunting license and or deer permit. The hunter must notify the police department before going out each day and at the end of each day, so we know exactly where these hunters are located. As part of their stand approval, we'll have the coordinates and be able to track that through the police department. A hunter must also use only legal archery equipment as described in Ohio Administrative Code 1501-31. A hunter must not hunt deer with the aid of electronic calling or device or light. Bow hunting must take place 30 minutes before sunrise or 30 minutes after sunset. A hunter must at all times carry a valid hunting license if required. Property owners, permission letter, and all permits at all times, and must be able to provide those documents to any police officer or game official as prescribed by the Ohio Division of Wildlife. In addition to checking deer with the state when a deer is harvested, the hunter must notify the city within 24 hours. The hunter must remove all entrails from the property owner that they have where the deer is harvested on, unless otherwise agreed to by the property owner. Animals may not be field dressed in the view of the public, and if a deer leaves a property that a permit was issued for the city and goes onto a property that they do not have permission for, you have to notify the police department immediately. The only possible way for the hunter to retrieve said deer on property that they do not have permission for is to get the property owner's approval prior to entering the property. Hunters may not trespass on any adjoining property without permission. Lastly, the mayor and designee shall have the right to refuse or revoke any hunting permit deemed necessary to ensure the safety of the city and the residents. Thirdly, there's a map that was recently created to help show and exhibit the areas where hunting permit applications will not even be accepted if the properties involved are inside of the red and green highlighted area in the city limits. Properties outside of that location where hunting is considered, I want to highlight that the word is considered. You have to present to us a case that hunting can be done safely on the property being proposed and that you have permission to be there. Again, I want to reiterate that hunting is stand-specific, location-specific, and hunters will not be allowed to roam around, walk around with archery equipment actively participating in hunting. Each property owner has a choice whether or not they want to permit hunting on their property. It's entirely up to them. The purpose of this program is for the hunter to be able to present contiguous acreage and properties where it can be done safely, and work with our police department through the permitting process to explain the permissions that they have, review all the paperwork, and leave it up to the police department to decide whether or not it can be done safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Kenny, you've been designated by the mayor to administer this program. And I think, if you could explain to us the way you're going to approach reviewing the hunters and reviewing the stand locations and property submissions so that we can have a better understanding of your view of how this program will be implemented.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Jansen. He brought up most of the points here for this program. However, there's some specificity from the police department that we'd like to comment on, that I'd like to comment on with this program. I just want to reiterate some of the points that Jansen made. Deer hunting is by permit only, once all of the program requirements are fulfilled. Hunting will only take place on private property where the hunter has obtained permission from the owner. All hunting locations will be inspected by a police officer signed off by me. The inspections will be conducted through a lens of public safety, and it will be very restrictive. The hunter will be required to check in with the police department at the beginning and the ending of their hunt. No permits will be issued in the center area of the city. No permits will be issued on small lots of lands either. The city or police department has complete and full discretion to deny any permit for any reason we deem necessary. Any violations of the rules of the program will result in revocation of any permits that have been issued and possible criminal charges. Violation of this ordinance is a first-degree misdemeanor. It's punishable up to 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine. No hunter is permitted to trespass on any property that they don't have written permission to be on. Hunters who violate the trespass ordinances are also subject to revocation of their permit and potential charges for criminal trespass. Criminal trespass in the state of Ohio is a fourth-degree misdemeanor. It's up to a $250 fine and jail for 30 days. So those are some of the bullet points that we have on the police department. Again, as we conduct surveys on these areas that are requested for hunting, it will, again, I want to reiterate that it will be done through a lens of public safety, and it will be done very conservatively and very restricted.
Thank you. Is there any council comments that you want to add? Anybody on council want to add any comments or anything? You have discussion items?
I do.
Mr. Lamb?
Chief?
Yes, sir.
Did you draw the map?
No, sir.
Earlier tonight, someone said you drew the map. Did you hear that?
I did.
Okay. Who actually drew the map?
I don't.
Wasn't drawn. It's a map of the city, and the colors were highlighted after consultation with Jansen and the police chief and myself. Who put the colors on there? It's a map
Thank
of
you.
the city.
That's fine. That was my question. And Jansen, I didn't quite catch the hours of hunting. Could you tell me that again? Was it 30 minutes before sunup and 30 minutes after sundown?
Correct. That's state law.
Okay, in between those two, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have a motion to make before we vote. I have a motion to table the current proposal for further review and consideration of measures and limitations that would provide for better safety through more specific regulations.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a second motion.
Yes, Mr. Lamb?
I have a motion to amend the ordinance by limiting the hours of hunting for those permitted, that would be only permitted to those hours that school students are not traveling to and from school or likely to be at a school bus stop.
Is there a second for Mr. Lamb's motion? Hearing none, the motion dies for lack of second.
I have a third motion.
Yes, Mr. Lamb?
Make a motion to amend the ordinance to exclude hunting on residential property, property of public or private schools, churches, cemeteries, and locations frequented by the public and adjacent properties.
Is there a second for Mr. Lamb's motion? Hearing none, the motion dies for lack of second.
I have another motion.
Yes, Mr. Lamb?
Thank you. Make a motion to amend the ordinance to include all properties adjacent to properties granted a permit for hunting. Those properties must be notified in writing prior to the issuance of a permit.
Thank you. Is there a second for Mr. Lamb's motion? Hearing none, the motion dies for lack of second.
I have a last motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lamb.
I have a motion to table this ordinance, mail a hard copy of the ordinance to every resident, then put the issue on the ballot in order to let the proposal stand or fall by a vote.
Is there a second for Mr. Lamb's motion? Hearing none, the motion dies for lack of second.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Is there anybody else that has any further discussion or comment on the ordinance? I just want to add a few things that, from my observations, I mean, I've been involved from the beginning from Mr. Lamb's meetings from his special legislation, and even prior to that, going way back to the ward meetings that most of you or some of you have attended, the Ward 3 and 4 meetings. We've been hearing different things for all these years about deer. We've heard different things. We've heard different opinions from all various sides. We've heard that the ordinance should have additional provisions added to it. My understanding or take of it is that I've listened to everybody. I read the ordinance. There is a provision in the ordinance which I believe is important that I don't think has drawn enough attention. I think it's Section 3 of the ordinance provides that we are going to implement a non-lethal program together with the calling program. And I believe Mr. Lamb is working on that, and we should have more information on that to adopt something that's more comprehensive from a non-lethal perspective. As I've always mentioned in all the meetings, I think calling in and of itself is not the solution to the deer problem in our community. I think it's going to take everything we have, and I always say in our toolbox, to make sure that we investigate and do everything possible to provide the safety for the residents and also the safety for the deer, because it's a safety for both. And we've heard different things about ticks, we've heard different things about deer disease, we've heard different things about car accidents. This is a comprehensive plan that we need to develop. Not one thing's going to solve our problem, and I think we're foolish to think that one thing is going to. I'm not foolish enough to think calling is going to be the only answer to our problem, because it's not going to be. We're going to have to do some non-lethal methods to make sure that we address every aspect of this problem we can address. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years to do this. And I think that if people think that we're going to call this year and it's going to solve the problem, that's not going to happen. It's going to take a very dedicated effort of not only members of council and administration, but of course members of the public. I know people get frustrated that they use these non-lethal methods of deer spray that don't work, but we have to try. We have to continue to try everything, because that's really the only solution we have. Now, I know a lot of you are disappointed that this ordinance may pass tonight, but I think that I feel comfortable enough listening to the police chief and the Jansen and the rules and regulations that the implementation of this ordinance will be done with the utmost safety in mind. And I think that the deer that'll be harvested throughout this process hopefully will be done in the utmost respectful manner by the hunters doing the harvesting. Now, there also can be debate on that all you want, but I have a belief that this can be accomplished in the way that it would be done. So I think that we can accomplish this in a way that we want to have this occur. So I'm confident and I have trust in the administration for the implementation. So is there any further discussion on council with respect to this ordinance? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
No.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Ordinance 162-22 passes 5 yeas, 1 nay.
Resolution 163-22, a resolution authorizing a loan application with the State of Ohio, Ohio Public Works Commission relative to a water system improvement project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Patton?
Thank you, Mr. President. Every year, we apply for and usually accept a grant from the Ohio Public Works Commission. In addition to their grant program, they have a loan program. We're requesting and participate in. This would be a $510,000 loan. It's a 20-year, 0% interest loan. This will be used to improve our water system on West Washington Street and South Elmwood.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the resolution? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the resolution?
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Resolution 163-22 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 16422, an ordinance.
Hey, John,
authorizing-
can you take a second here?
Oh, sorry.
On the deer ordinance, I may have missed this, but I didn't hear a motion to adopt the ordinance, and I didn't hear it a second. Now, do we have that in the minutes? Because I didn't catch it.
Okay, Ms. Patton?
Yes.
Who made the motion? Who seconded it? Because I didn't hear the motion, and I didn't hear a second.
You know, I don't think I did either.
So you need to make a
Yeah,
motion
we
to
did.
adopt
He
the
did.
ordinance.
Jim-
Need to have a
Every time we
second.
do an
motion, I
ordinance,
second it.
If you notice, every time we do an ordinance, Mr. Shields moves to approve that ordinance, and then he seconds it, then I ask for discussion. That's exactly how it happens on that time. If you want to revisit
So
the
that was
TV
before the discussion?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Always.
that's true.
Well, I would
Always
make
do that.
sure that.
I'm
You just made
100%
me
positive.
second guess.
I mean, we do this for every council meeting. So if you want to look at the tape again, you can look at the tape. But going back to ordinance 16422, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement between the Medina County Commissioners and the City of Medina, Ohio pertaining to the operation and maintenance of the city sanitary sewer system.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Patton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Back in 1972, the city and the county entered into an agreement whereas the county would operate and maintain the city's sanitary sewer system. That was a 50-year agreement, which expires on December 31st of this year. In anticipation of that, Mayor Hanwell, Greg Huber, and I have met with the county and the county prosecutor's office to craft a new agreement. The new agreement is essentially the same as the old one. There are some minor changes, but it's essentially the same, and it is an additional 50-year agreement.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the ordinance?
John, before you approve this, can you do this subject to my approval? There's one issue I'd like to talk to the prosecutor about before this is signed.
Sure, is the motion?
I'll amend my motion to include subject to the final approval of the law director.
And my second includes the same.
Is there any further discussion on the ordinance after that modification? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Ordinance 164-22 passes, subject to law director.
Just to go back to ordinance 16222, Matt, back there, if you could check, since you have the capability to look on the TV screen, so we can alleviate Mr. Huber's concern about the adoption of the ordinance 16222, we'd appreciate that. Okay? Moving on to ordinance 16522, an ordinance amending ordinance number 12022 passed June 8, 2022, relative to the contract for the emergency State Route 18 water line extension.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Patton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier this year, in conjunction with the ODOT project in State Route 18, after a number of significant breaks, council authorized an emergency replacement of water line on 18 in the area of the hospital. At that time, the estimated cost was just an estimate because we hadn't figured the total extent of the repair. The time we approved $80,000, the final cost was a little over $138,000. So that's why we're asking for this addition right now.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the ordinance? Clerk, please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Ordinance 165-22 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 16622, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of various fitness equipment for Design 2 Wellness for the Medina Community Recreation Center.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Worley.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is to purchase several pieces of fitness equipment through the Matrix Johnson Health Tech North America, through the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance, through our dealer Design to Wellness. We're also requesting to apply a used equipment trade of $6,200. This equipment purchase will upgrade existing equipment in our free weight area and our fitness room. The total amount for the purchase is $51,021.93, and we are purchasing this using carry-forward funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the ordinance? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Ordinance 166-22 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 16722, an ordinance authorizing expenditure of $33,660 to Fire Safety Services, Inc. for the purchase of 12 sets of turnout gear for the use by the fire department.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields?
the emergency clause has been requested. I move to add it at this time.
My second includes the emergency clause.
Discussion on the emergency clause on the ordinance. Chief Walters.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is for the purchase of 12 sets of turnout gear to bring some of our firefighters back into date. The majority of our gear is beyond we're approaching the 10-year NFPA guideline. Turnout gear is really expensive. As you can see, this is only 12 sets. So we were fortunate in two ways with this. One, the vendor, Fire Safety Services, agreed to hold the beginning of the year's price point if we could get this through. And then additionally, after I brought this to finance a few weeks ago, Barb did take this to our attorney that manages the ARPA funds, and they did agree that it was an approved purchase. So the ordinance has the ARPA account number in it now, so that's good news for the fire department's budget. The emergency clause is for the price hold that the vendor agreed to, so that's why we're asking for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the emergency clause and/or the ordinance? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the emergency clause?
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Ordinance 167-22 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 16822, an ordinance authorizing the payment to C&J Noble Construction for the private home rehabilitation at 172 Normandy Drive, Brunswick, as part of the fiscal year 20 CHIP grant program.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields?
the emergency clause has been requested. I move to add it this time.
My second includes the emergency clause.
Discussion on the emergency clause and the ordinance. Mrs. Marshall? Is this you? Who is this? Oh, Commissioner Dutton. Sorry, Mrs. Marshall. Put me on the spot.
Thank you. As Ms. DeZur noted at the Finance Committee meeting, this is we're asked to authorize a distribution of our CHIP funds from 2020 and our partner community in Brunswick at 172 Normandy Drive. The requested amount is $72,000, which is a few hundred over the contractor's estimate to allow for minor overages. The ordinance has been requested as emergency in order for the contractor to get the project started. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the ordinance and/or the emergency clause? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the emergency clause?
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Ordinance 168-22 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 16922, an ordinance amending ordinance number 20121 passed December 13, 2021, amendments to the 2022 budget.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Durham?
Everybody left. I thought they were here to talk about this. This is the ARPA funds and the increase in appropriations for fuel. It's for all the departments that buy fuel, because obviously fuel is above what we had budgeted for.
Any further discussion or comment on the ordinance? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Ordinance 169-22 passes 6-0.
And Matt, do you have an answer?
Mr. President, we're going to have to take a quick recess. The only way I can go back on the tape is I stopped the recording for a few minutes.
Oh, you do? Well, let's do council comments, and then we'll do the recess if you like. I mean, I guess.
If you want to confirm it, I can.
Well, yeah, I
go
think
back and
Mr.
do that.
Huber brought it up, but I'm pretty confident, but we better confirm it while we're here.
Okay.
But council comments, I guess. Anybody have any council comments? Mr. Simpson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight's been a long night. It's been a long several months. Everyone here, including the administration, has listened to comments on both sides of the culling issue. As I stated before, I've never been a hunter. I don't own a gun. If I had to kill what I eat, I'd be a vegetarian. But I do believe that there is a problem. I am confident that the ordinance that was passed tonight, with the direction from the police chief and the parks director, that safety is going to be the utmost concern. We can always amend as we go forward if we see a problem arise. And I'm not talking about a safety problem. I'm talking about any other problem that occurs with any ordinance that we pass. I think this has been vetted fairly thorough. As I've said many times in council comments, it doesn't matter what side of the issue that you're on, what political party you're affiliated with, and debate it's a positive thing. And I think that all the comments have been very, very positive on both sides. I may not agree with one side or the other, but they've been positive, and I do think that all of us here has taken that into consideration. And as somebody mentioned, that the social media has blown up with negative comments. I can't speak for other people, but I've had comments that if I vote for this, that they hope that I would die, that I'm going to go to hell, and that all may be true. I may be going to hell, but comments like that are not, shouldn't be accepted by anybody, no matter what side of the issue you're on. I know there's people said that we've rolled our eyes up here, or I don't know anybody up here that's made negative comments to anybody. I mean, the only comment that I made that could have been perceived as negative is at our ward meeting, when Mr. Shields said we were only going to take questions from Ward 3 and Ward 4 residents first, and then if there's time, from other city residents. And I said, that means no out-of-city residents. And I know there was one individual here, Lila, your friend, Stacy, that lives in Montville Township. I didn't mean it to offend her, but I think it did offend her, and I apologize. I mean, I didn't have a chance tonight to apologize to her. Just that there's so many comments that people that live in the city, that it was more important for them to be heard than people that live outside the city. And as I say, a lot of the meetings, and people get tired of hearing it, doesn't matter what side of the issue you're on, doesn't matter what political affiliation, just be kind to one another. It's real simple. Hate has no place in this city, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional council comments?
Mr. President?
Ms. Harris?
Yeah, and I agree with almost everything that Denny has said. When I was elected, and after I was sworn in, I had people say to me, promise me that you will not waste the taxpayer dollars. I did make that promise. And part of all of this is, how can we go about with a program that's not going to waste the taxpayers' dollars that could be used somewhere else? And I look forward to seeing some of these additional plans that we can implement that are not going to be, a waste of taxpayers' dollars and expensive, that will allow us to reduce the herd, but in a manageable and safe way. I would never have supported something that I didn't believe would be safe to our residents, our property, and to our pets. And I, too, have confidence in our administration to make the best decisions so as to not put anybody at risk. I would never agree to do something like that. And I certainly didn't want to make a decision based on emotion. I, too, am not a hunter. It's not something I could do, but I do know a lot of hunters, and I know why they hunt, and they do it safely. So we're not going to agree on everything. That's why there's 7 of us up here on council. And I do respect people's opinions, and I respect my coworkers as they are, their opinions. But I think collectively, we could do this in a safe manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. On a high note, I do want to say for the police department, I'm really excited, Chief, for those 3 promotions, Lieutenant Wagner, Sergeant Ori, and then Officer Ty. I will miss Sergeant Ori at Claggett. She did a great job, and very thankful for the SRO program in our school system, but I'm looking forward to Officer Ty being there. And I'm excited for Lieutenant Wagner. I've always known him to be a fine member of the Medina Police Department, so I'm just excited about those 3 things. I will thank everybody for being here tonight. I appreciate everybody's input, their thoughts. I especially appreciate people that had good, appropriate conversations and tried to keep this above board and respectful and professional. We do care. We do want to listen. We will continue to listen. We will tweak this program if it needs to be tweaked. We're not going to just forget about it. I will apologize on behalf of the Ward 3 and Ward 4 meeting if somebody thinks that we were being disrespectful. I was trying to keep it moving that night. I was trying to make sure the residents of Ward 3 and 4, which the ward meetings are designed for, had a chance. We had already had a Ward 1 and Ward 2 meeting earlier this year where we did listen to residents from Ward 1 and 2, and I wanted to make sure Ward 3 and 4 had a chance, but I will apologize if anybody felt offended in any way or thought they were brushed off or not listened to. I will always listen. I will always try to find a middle ground with people. And I do appreciate everybody was here, and I respect both sides of this. And again, if we can just have good civil discourse on this topic and be polite and respectful to one another and try to see each other's side, I think that goes a long way to having something positive come from all this. Thank you.
Any other council comments? Mr. Rose?
Go ahead. You're next.
Mr. Rose?
Okay, congratulations, Chief, to the officers and their new assignments. I know they'll do well. The one thing, does Sergeant Ori ever not smile? Every time I see her, she's got a big smile on her face. That gives me good hope. Okay, so congratulations to them. On the going back on a little bit of history, the Stop Government Waste Committee is up to $92,000 in wasted government money for the extra lawsuits that we've won 4 out of the 5 so far. There's still one in process right now, so, all with creating some false hysteria on it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lamb?
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me say this. This isn't actually about let's all be positive or let's all get along well or let's all be kind. What this is really about to me is about we're not supposed to make decisions based on the size of the crowd or the survey that ODNR took or any other survey that happened. We are supposed to make decisions on what we have deemed to be the very best thing we can do for this community, period. That's what we're supposed to do. What bothers me most about this issue is, first of all, the way it was taken from committee when it didn't pass, which meant we ended up constructing piecemeal the ordinance that we just voted on tonight and passed. This wasn't born whole. This was born piece by piece by piece. One night, you can be 12 years old. I mean, if you have an adult and a license, you don't need to take a course, and you can hunt. The next meeting, you can be 12 years old, and if you have a license and an adult, you have to take a course, and you can hunt. And then last week, you have to be, if you're 12 years old, you can't hunt because you have to be 21. This was not conceived in committee. This was conceived piece by piece by piece outside of a committee. Then it came to finance. Then it was approved. Then it came to council. I think this is the worst piece of legislation I have probably ever seen, based primarily on the method by which it was constructed. If I was ever to go and run a campaign for somebody, I know exactly how I would do it. I would change what we're doing every single time I talked, because the people that were trying to figure out what you're doing would never really be able to figure it out. So there was a lot of questions during this process that were relabeled as misinformation. Well, it wasn't really misinformation. It was a response to the information that was currently available. That's what it was. And then the next time it would change. And so it looked like folks had misinformation. And it is interesting to me that if you are a group of people that get together and you work hard because you believe in this, right? You think that this is a good thing to do. You are labeled then by this administration or this city council, you are then going to be labeled a special interest group. Whereas if you show up and there's a group of you, you are not a special interest group. Or if you go to a ward meeting, if you're unfortunate enough to go to a ward meeting and you speak out and it is not what people want to hear, then you are labeled as opinionated people. Whereas the people that are saying what you do want to hear, I guess they are not opinionated people. But what bothers me the most about this whole thing has absolutely nothing to do with the deer. It's about the behavior. Not the behavior of the people, particularly in the audience, but the behavior here. Not only did we pass an ordinance that is more poorly constructed than any other ordinance any other city is using in any comparable city, because we include very little specifics. Not only did we do that, but at the ward meeting in particular, we made it very clear that if you're a man and you get up to talk and you ask a question, you got that question answered. And then the same man could ask another question and get that question answered, and maybe ask a third question and get that question answered. But if you're a woman and you get up and talk, you are interrupted, you are corrected, you never get to finish your question, you are told to move on. But the next person that gets up can talk 3 times as long as you talked and not be told to move on. This is no longer the era where women are supposed to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, and don't worry because your husband's going to take care of things and the man will take care of things. We've come a long way since then. So forget about the deer ordinance and think about the eye rolling, the comments, and the fact that women were treated 100% differently at that ward meeting than men were, and I heard it from multiple women that were there. To me, that was a disgrace. I have spent years trying to elect women to this body because there have been so few women ever elected to city council. When you figure 50% of the population or better is women, why is it only 11 women have ever been on the city council, ever? And I've elected 3 of them because you need to have that kind of input, and we need to be fair and listen to everybody. I sat through 3 special legislation meetings that went on for hours and listened to every single person regardless of what you said or what gender you were. You were all treated the same. That's what bothers me most about this. This is a sad day for this city, and there is no denying what happened. And to have an afterward apology for that behavior is absolutely meaningless. Thank you.
Thank you. And in an effort not to wait forever to figure out the final answer, which,
I went back and checked the tape. There was no motion other than Councilman Lamb's
motions?
For 5.
Okay, well, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to reconsider ordinance 16222, put back on the floor for discussion and vote on.
I'll make a motion to reconsider the ordinance.
Second.
Any further discussion on a motion to reconsider ordinance 16222?
Should I go through the amendments again?
No, I think the amendments were on tape, correct?
Yes, we got all the amendments. There was just no motion after your final comments on the...
Well, the motion would have been at the beginning, not at the end. That's why I don't want to go all the way back, and because the motion happens right at the beginning. So we'll just reconsider it. That way we don't have to go through this whole process. So any further discussion on the motion to reconsider ordinance 16222? Will the clerk please call the roll on the motion to reconsider ordinance 16222?
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
No.
Ordinance 16222 passes.
Well, the motion to reconsider passes.
I'm sorry, the motion to reconsider ordinance 16222 passes.
Ordinance
5 yeas.
16222, an ordinance amending section 50511 of chapter 505 of the codified ordinance of the city of Medina, authorizing a nuisance abatement initiative for both short-term and long-term control and reduction of white-tailed deer population in coordination with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and contiguous adjoining political subdivisions to opt to adopt a similar plan for nuisance abatement.
Move to approve.
Second.
There you go. Any further discussion on that ordinance? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of ordinance 16222? Thanks.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coins.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lamb.
No.
Rose.
Yes.
16222 passes. 5 yeas.
Okay, any other council comments tonight, this evening? I appreciate everybody staying as late as they did. You know, we appreciate your time. With that said, the council meeting is adjourned.